I still remember the frustration. I remember crying in my car. I remember praying. At that point in time, I mean, you hate to speak these words out, but I would have taken any diagnosis because it would have been an explanation as to why my body was rebelling against me. That's a dark place to be in. And I don't want anyone else to go through it if they don't have to, or I at least want to be able to catch them in those beginning stages where we can say, wait a minute, don't lose hope. Don't give up. There are answers. I don't care how many doctors told you nothing's wrong with you or we can't do anything. We absolutely can, and there are answers.
Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It is my pleasure to have Dr. Amie Hornaman with us. Dr. Amie is the Thyroid Fixer. She's the host of the top-rated podcast in medicine and alternative health called the Thyroid Fixer with listeners around the globe. She's the founder of the Institute for Thyroid and Hormone Optimization, an organization with transformational, proven approaches to address thyroid dysfunction and support you in returning to full health. Dr. Amie is also the founder of the Fixer supplement line with revolutionary proprietary supplements that specifically address the struggles Dr. Amie saw in her patients: inability to lose weight, fatigue, low libido, hormone imbalance, and more. From the Fixer products to her one-on-one programs, Dr. Amie's on a mission to optimize you and give your life back. Dr. Amie, it's so great to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah, so we know each other through Genius Network, which is an amazing group of world changers and open-hearted, heart-centered people. So I consider you to be one of those amazing group of open-hearted givers and lights in the world. Thank you for all you do to help people heal and be their best optimal self. I'm curious to hear what your origin story is of how you got so interested in specifically the thyroid, but more generally in health optimization and hormone optimization, balancing. How did this come about?
So, like many of us in this space, right? A lot of us go through trying time that leads us into helping others because of what we went through. And that was the case with me as well. So if we rewind 20 some odd years, I was competing in fitness and figure competitions. So those of you who don't know what that is, you are basically dieting very, very hard. You're eating a very clean nutrition plan of chicken, broccoli, fish, asparagus. Sometimes you're going to the gym twice a day. So it's very regimented. It's very detailed, but I had done plenty of them before. I'd done multiple shows. I also was doing fitness modeling at the time. So I would prepare for a photo shoot the same way I would for a show. And I knew how my body would respond or should respond. And this one particular show I was getting ready for was a bigger show. And I had a coach. And, with all of our coaches, whether you have a business coach, a health coach, whatever, you're always checking in with them. And they're checking in with you to see how's your progress in whatever you're working on. So I would check in with my coach and I would have to weigh in order to tell him, hey, this is what's happening with my body. Yes, the body fat is dropping. I'm putting on muscle, whatever. And every week I would weigh in and I would step on the scale and I would look down. And this particular show, the scale was going up instead of down. And that just didn't make sense. And really biologically, it didn't even make sense. So whether you are a believer in calories in, calories out or not, when you're eating that clean, when you're putting nothing but just clean, pure, good food into your body and you're expending that much energy with heavy weightlifting and cardio, you really should be body comp changing. The fat should be reducing, the muscle should be increasing or at least staying the same, and you should see some type of change on the scale. So I kept weighing in and the scale kept going up, and then that produced a lot of self-blame, a lot of self-loathing. I would get into the mindset of maybe it's me, maybe I'm not working hard enough. Maybe if I just restrict a little bit more, maybe if I work out a little bit harder. So I would do that, step on the scale again, and it would be up again. So the last time I got on the scale, it was up 25 pounds. I was incredibly exhausted. I started losing my hair. And I then did what we all do. I went to my doctor. And I asked my doctor, what's wrong? Here's what's going on. Here's what I'm doing. Can we please figure out what's going on with my body? Because I felt my body was rebelling against me. They did some tests. He or she did some tests. I can't even remember. If I could go back, I would love to see those tests that they did, because I guarantee you they were not thorough. They were not testing everything they needed to test. So ran some tests and basically came back and said, you are normal. I'm using air quotes here. You're normal. Everything is fine. So I left there more discouraged, more frustrated. Didn't stop though at that doctor. I'm like, I'm going to get a second opinion here. So I go to doctor number 2, who tells me to eat less and exercise more. And I'm thinking, well, I've already done that to myself. I've already beaten myself up and told myself to eat less and exercise more. So at this point, it's not even possible. It's not possible to drop my calories anymore. It's not possible to work out harder. So I went to doctor number 3. And then 4, 5, 6, who all told me I was normal. Everything was fine. One of them told me it was all in my head. So we call that medical gaslighting, because you actually start thinking that you're crazy and that it is maybe you, and maybe there's nothing wrong with you and you're manifesting these symptoms. Finally, doctor number 7 touches my throat and says, swallow. And she tells me, you have a goiter, you have a nodule on your thyroid. We're going to do some ultrasounds, further testing, but here's a pill that I want you to take. And I was excited. I left her office. I was so pumped up because I had an answer and I had a pill, and I thought this was going to be my answer to all of my symptoms, and I'm finally going to lose the weight. And I gave it 5 months and no change, nothing, no change at all on the scale. So I went back to her. And again, I went back to doing what we all do. I Dr. Googled, and I looked on Google for thyroid problems. I found this amazing thyroid hormone called T3. I go back to her. I say, hey, what's this T3? You gave me T4. That's the inactive thyroid hormone. Can I have some of this T3? She goes, no, I don't do that. I said, well, I'm going to find somebody who does. And I kept hearing the name over and over again. When the universe gives you signals multiple times, and you're like, maybe I should listen to it now. I kept hearing the name over and over again of this functional practitioner and how he helped all these people. So I'm like, okay, one last try, one last go. I'm going to go see him. And I went to see him, and he sat down with me, and he spent 90 minutes with me. No other doctor had spent more than 10 minutes with me. It was amazing. And he looked at all of my labs. Well, we tested everything that I needed to be tested. He looked at all my labs. He looked at my food. He looked at my supplements. He said, here's what's going on with you. We need to change this up, and put me on a totally different treatment protocol, addressing my thyroid properly. And you know what? It worked. And I lost the weight, and I felt better, and I got my energy back, and my hair grew back. And so from that point on, that's when I changed careers, because I was in a major medical system at that time. I was in UPMC Pittsburgh, which is equivalent to Cleveland Clinic or Mayo Clinic, and best of the best doctors, right? And 6 of them misdiagnosed me, and the 7th one didn't know how to treat me. So I knew this is what I need to be doing in order to help other people, because if I just went through that in Pittsburgh, other people are going through it all over the world, really, but definitely all over the United States. So that's how I landed here, specializing in thyroid and hormones.
And how long have you been doing this? And when did that happen? That breakthrough?
Oh gosh, about 20, I'm thinking 27 years now I'm going on. So it was a long time ago. It was back in my 20s. And for a body to rebel when you're kind of young and healthy, so to speak, that was another eye-opening experience, because really, as we move into, 30s, 40s, 50s, that's when our hormones start to change. That's when we'll see a lot of thyroid issues, a lot of hormone imbalance. But I got hit hard at a very young age. But I guess that was a blessing, because I was able to change careers at a very young age as well.
Yeah. Well, you said that operative word, blessing. So it's hard oftentimes to see what you're going through as a blessing, but what they said about connecting the dots, you only do that going backwards instead of forwards. So you see that as a blessing now, going through this tumultuous time?
1,000,000%. Absolutely. 1,000,000%. It's a blessing, because when we're given hardships of any type, whether it's health related or financial or relationship or family, business, we learn from it. Whether you want to go through it or not, you're learning valuable lessons when you go through those hard times. And they really are building those hard times, those crises are building character in you as well as resilience. So I'm a much more resilient person now. Obviously, I love what I do. I love helping other people. I love seeing the results in my patients that I had, because I still remember, I mean, even though it was 20 some years ago, I still remember the frustration. I remember crying in my car. I remember praying. At that point in time, I mean, you hate to speak these words out, but I would have taken any diagnosis because it would have been an explanation as to why my body was rebelling against me. That's a dark place to be in. And I don't want anyone else to go through it if they don't have to, or I at least want to be able to catch them in those beginning stages where we can say, wait a minute, don't lose hope. Don't give up. There are answers. I don't care how many doctors told you nothing's wrong with you or we can't do anything. We absolutely can, and there are answers.
And for you to go through 7 different doctors in order to get the answer was also part of that journey of the blessing, because you got to experience what you referred to earlier as medical gaslighting, so that you can understand what other people go through. If you had gotten the correct diagnosis in the first go, you would have still received the breakthrough of your health turning around and being able to pivot, change your career into what you do now. But with this additional experience of medical gaslighting, you can really speak to the disaffected, the challenged, the folks who are kind of victimized by the medical establishment, and be a voice for those people.
Yes, most definitely.
So you, as you mentioned, received all these signs from the universe, like all these mentions of this particular functional medicine doctor was the key to your turnaround. What sort of other signs have you gotten from the universe that have really leapfrogged or jumped you forward in your career, in your life, in your spiritual connection, in your optimization, and the assistance you give to your clients?
Oh, goodness. Well, I guess specifically with what I do and helping people, because I mean, my gosh, I could dig deep and we all get signs and blessings. And if you really step back, miracles that occur in your life over and over again, really. But I would say, and this sounds so crazy, but 2020 and COVID helped in a way because it let people have a more open-minded opinion of how they can get help. I think we all grew up in a time where it was you go to your local PCP who's down the street or who's in your hometown. And if you can't find someone to help you in your hometown, then you're just stuck. You're done. You're staying exactly where you are and feeling how you are. And COVID broke that mindset, because we saw an opening of online meetings, Zoom meetings, but even telehealth. So the telehealth laws changed during COVID, and it allowed practitioners, doctors, NPs, PAs to do these virtual visits with people while they're still in their home. And in fact, they didn't even have to be in the same state. They could be in a totally different state, and we could meet with them and help them out. And then that extended. So it was my goal during COVID to build a network of practitioners and prescribers that would be part of my team so that we could help people in every single state. I didn't want oh, no, sorry, you're in Minnesota, we can't help you. I wanted to be able to help everyone in every single state. And I did that. So that was really kind of the blessing of the shutdowns and going more online, as we all did during that time, because now people are more open-minded and they're realizing that they can branch out and get help, not by the doctor that's down the road, but by a doctor that's across the country. And you can still get exactly what you need: the bioidentical hormones, the right thyroid medication, the assistance, the help, the support, the nutritional guidance, the lifestyle guidance, the biohacking tools, all of it. And we don't even have to be in your hometown. So I would say that was the next big thing that came out on my journey. I would say the next big blessing on my journey.
Makes sense. Yeah. So you mentioned PCP, so primary care providers. Anyone who has insurance knows that acronym and is not loving it, probably, because they can't immediately go to a specialist, even if they know exactly who to go to and what they need or what the problem is in the body. They still have to go to that PCP and get the referral, and who knows how many weeks wait just to get into that primary care provider. just to get a slip so that they can go see the specialist. It's ridiculous. It's such a broken system.
Oh, huge broken system. It's basically sick medicine. And the other point to mention that I brought up when describing what I went through is insurance doesn't cover more than a 7-minute visit, maybe a 10-minute visit at max. So if you really want someone to sit down and listen to you and be able to look at your labs like a puzzle and be able to put the pieces together and say, okay, you feel poorly because this number's off and this number's off. And really going back to the name of this podcast, I want you optimized. I want your labs in the optimal range. And that's the term that I use, is the functional medicine optimal range. It's not the sick medicine standard lab value range, the normal range. They even have like WNL, within normal limits. Well, if you're within normal limits on your labs, you're ignored. And no one is sitting there looking at your labs going, well, is this a low normal? Is this a high normal? How does this pair together with your symptoms? How does this pair together with this lab marker? So I think, that's the other topic that needs to be addressed really everywhere to everyone, is we need to break out of insurance is going to pay for everything, right? Our parents and our grandparents taught us, well, you go to the doctor and you give them your insurance card and you pay your copay and everything is covered. And not anymore. If you really want to be optimized, you have to break out of the insurance-based model, because PCPs or even some specialists, they don't have the time to spend with you to really dig deep and figure out what you need.
Yeah. And they're heavily overbooked. So you could be waiting weeks, which could be really deleterious to your health if you have an urgent situation and you don't realize it.
Definitely. Absolutely. My sister is a geriatric doctor, one of the best in the United States. And she has regularly complained to me about being overbooked. And you're talking about older people, people in the 70s, 80s, they need time. They want to be able to sit there and talk to their doctor and understand. And she'll have so many people booked in an hour that she can't spend the time that she needs with them. And that is the broken system. So as much as maybe the docs even want to spend the time, they can't, because the hospital system is saying, no, you need to see this quota of patients in a day. So move along. Look at any of the lab markers that are flagged red or have an H or an L next to them. Other than that, don't converse with this person. Just move on to the next one.
All right. So let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum. Highly functional. So what sort of biohacks and ways to optimize your health and be the CEO of your health would you recommend as the top priorities?
I of course love to start with full labs, test, don't guess. So we want to look at all of your lab markers, specifically full thyroid panels, full hormone panels, and then the basics, the CBC, the CMP. We want to look at insulin, A1C, all of these markers that tell me a lot about you. And then next, I want to ask you the four most important words that any practitioner dealing with your health can ask you. How do you feel? So we take how you feel, we look at and overlay that with your labs, all of them, all of the labs. And then we can really design a protocol. So whether that means, oh, you know what, you do have low thyroid function. The thyroid is the master gland. It's controlling your entire body. Let's start there and address that, because that's going to have a trickle down effect to your sex hormones, to your insulin, to your gut, to your nutrient secretion, to your libido, to your ability to build muscle, to your ability to think clearly and process information and be the best worker you can be, or run a business or run your family, whatever it is. Let's start at the top with the master gland, and then let's keep going and let's see what else we find and what else needs to be addressed. And we can do biohacking tools. I mean, biohacking isn't just an expensive piece of equipment or a sauna or an HBOT machine. It can be using bioidentical hormone replacement. It can be using certain nutrients and supplements to address a deficiency or a lack. It can be, hey, you know what? You need to increase your protein intake because we're seeing a little bit of sarcopenia or muscle loss here. Biohacking is kind of combined and blended with just health optimization to personalize a treatment for you, whatever that looks like. And that's really where we start. So we have to test, don't guess, ask you how you feel, and then implement that plan according to what we're seeing in your labs and how that pairs up with your symptoms.
Yeah. So let's say you have a symptom of, just hypothetically, I don't have this, but let's say you had brain fog, and there are people who they went through the gamut trying to figure out where this came from. And eventually, after a lot of medical gaslighting, it was found that they had exposure to toxic mold. How would you address somebody who has brain fog, as an example? Of course, the protocols that you just described, of full labs, full hormone panels, all that, and asking them a whole bunch of questions. How do you get to the root cause of something like brain fog?
So exactly like you said, brain fog can be so many different things. So we want to test, don't guess. So it could be low thyroid function. It could be your hormones are off. It could be low ferritin. It could be, like you said, mold, heavy metals. But when we get down into the weeds of, let's say, mold or heavy metals, or even Lyme disease, tick-borne illnesses, Epstein-Barr virus, all of those I put in a category of how shored up is your body to deal with that. Because if we took 20 people and we look at and we expose them to mold and we look at their labs, they probably all have Epstein-Barr virus, because I've never met a person that doesn't have EBV. And it's very rare that you'll find an adult that hasn't been bitten by a tick at some point in time. Even if you say, I don't remember ever being bitten by a tick, go ahead and test yourself, because there's going to be some kind of Lyme or tick-borne illness in your labs that's going to come back positive, because I'm one of those. So I tested myself. I'm like, oh, look, there's Epstein-Barr virus. There's some heavy metals, because I grew up in the time of amalgam fillings, the silver fillings filled with mercury. I grew up with a pool filled with chlorine, all of the things. And how shored up is that person's body to deal with the onslaught that is going to come because you're not living in a bubble. So then we go back to what shores up the body. And that's where I go, let's make sure your immune system is functioning well. Let's make sure your gut is functioning well. Let's make sure your liver is processing toxins, that your thyroid and your hormones are balanced. And then you will have a body that can defend against those onslaughts. Whereas if you take a weakened person, and I say that lovingly, not like a weak-minded person, but a weakened immune system, a person that has multiple exposures. Maybe they're not eating processed foods. Maybe they're just not taking care of themselves. They have a thyroid that hasn't been addressed. They've been misdiagnosed 6 times or whatever. And you look at how does their body deal with a mold exposure, they're going to break down. They're going to have every symptom in the world. They're going to feel like absolute garbage, be on the couch, not be able to get out of bed, have all of these histamine reactions, maybe develop mast cell activation syndrome because their body can't tolerate it. So I know that was a really long answer to a short question, but I wanted to address the mold piece because I often see practitioners out there that maybe they specialize in just treating mold. Like, if we treat your mold, all your life will be shiny, bright, and new. And it's like, no, because if you don't, like you said, get to the root cause, sometimes the root cause is not the mold. The root cause is that you have a weakened body, that no one has paid attention to your thyroid. No one has balanced your hormones. Your immune system is shot. You're laden with autoimmune conditions and your body can't handle it.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry for that long answer, but I wanted to touch on that because I know that's really popular in functional medicine these days, like heavy metal specialists and mold specialists and Lyme specialists. It's like, you can specialize all you want, but if that person isn't shored up, if their body isn't built up, not new protocol in the world is going to help.
Yeah, because we get so much toxic exposure just being out in the world, whether it's 5G or it's different kinds of chemicals in the air or in the water or in the food. It's just everywhere. You get glyphosate rained on you just on a regular basis. It's pretty crazy. So we have to have a shored up immune system. And one of the ways that we end up getting these various diseases is having a lowered functioning immune system. Let's say that we have some GI issues. There's something that you were on my wife Orion's podcast on Stellar Life, and I believe you guys spoke about gastroparesis. Why don't you explain that and how that relates, or just issues with constipation or not eliminating well and the toxin buildup, how that can show up as all these different maladies?
Oh, yeah. So one of the big symptoms of hypothyroidism is constipation or gastroparesis in a more extreme state. Because when you think thyroid, hypo, low, and slow. So everything has slowed down from your metabolism to your mitochondrial function, energy, ATP production, hair growth, and gut motility. So the rate at which your GI tract moves food and toxins through the gut to be eliminated, that slows down. So we see a lot of constipation, or like I said, in extreme cases, gastroparesis. Whenever you have toxins sitting in the gut, they're going to cause an issue. Now, we know the term leaky gut. I think that's almost been overused, but everybody knows it at least. Some people don't know what exactly it is, but they say, I think I have leaky gut. Well, what essentially it means is that your gut lining, so our gut lining from our mouth to our bum, is actually, if we lay it out, it's the size of a tennis court, which is crazy to think about. So now picture a tennis court, and laid out on that tennis court, you have tile and what we thought was grout, like sealing the tile together. But as we study the gut more and more, we know that grout is not hard, impermeable grout. It's permeable. And some people will say it's more like a sliding door, a swinging door, however you want to picture it. Toxins, or what we call lipopolysaccharides, LPS, can get through that lining and go into your bloodstream. So naturally, if you're not processing waste through your body properly, and then add on top of that the toxin exposure, the glyphosate, yes, even if you buy organic, you are not guaranteed pesticide free, right? Like, we know that there's certain limits of pesticides that are allowed. My husband made this point. It's so good. He's like, okay, this farmer is organic and that farmer next to him isn't, and there's a strong wind. I mean, do you think that the spray is coming on over into the organic farmers? I'm like, yeah, good point. So we are exposed, and those toxins will permeate the gut. And again, it comes back to, how does it affect your body? Are you shored up? Can you handle those toxins? Can you process those toxins? Is your liver working properly? And if your thyroid is the root cause problem of why you have this slowed gut motility, my goodness, then let's fix that, because that's going to fix a boatload of symptoms, because you're not going to have that waste just sitting there. You're not going to have food or toxins, LPS, sitting in your gut, permeating and going into your bloodstream. And then we know that is also a trigger for autoimmune conditions. So again, if we're talking thyroid, we're talking Hashimoto's, but really leaky gut is tied to all autoimmune conditions. And where we see one, we see more than one. So if you have, let's say, Hashimoto's, and you know that you do, and you don't do anything with your gut, you don't optimize your thyroid, and you're constipated all the time, most likely we will see, and that you could be low nutrients. I mean, there's a whole host of things that we could talk about to support the immune system, but what you'll end up seeing is, now this person has rheumatoid arthritis. Now this person has celiac disease. Because they will develop other autoimmune conditions.
Wow. And also that you can get misdiagnosed as having AFib, or arterial fibrillation, by having this constipation and then the hypothyroidism.
Bingo. Absolutely. I mean, an employee of mine, before she became an employee, she was a patient. Before she was a patient, she was misdiagnosed with AFib, and she actually had an ablation done. And she now knows that was just simply the result of her thyroid, because she had the ablation, the AFib came back, did thorough testing, found it was her thyroid, did not do additional treatment for the AFib, didn't do another ablation, didn't do the metoprolol, fixed her thyroid, the AFib went away.
Yeah. And an ablation is what?
When they actually go in and cauterize part of your heart. I mean, it's a common procedure, but it's kind of like scary when you think about it, that they're actually going up through a leg, vein, artery, and taking a little burning thing into your heart to cauterize it. So it's common, but it's like you kind of sit back and you go, do I want someone poking around with a hot poker in my heart? You want to avoid that if at all possible.
Yeah. What's the old adage? If you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Very
I have
good.
a hot poker here. I got to find places to use it.
Let's jam it into your heart.
Yeah. Wow. And I guess she's doing much better now that she's.
Oh, she's great. Yeah, she's totally fine. She's optimized. I always talk about optimization land. Again, to kind of go along with the podcast, right? It's funny that we both talk about this. Optimization land, great place to be. Your energy is good. You're not gaining weight, looking sideways at a brownie. Your brain functions. You're pooping every day. I mean, it's just, you're in a good mood. I mean, life still happens, but the overall experience of life is a good one. Mm-hmm. And you need your health optimized in order to feel that way.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that many or most people have Epstein-Barr virus and they just don't know it. I remember reading in the Medical Medium, the book by Anthony William, who is the Medical Medium. He talks a lot about EBV, and he's a big proponent of celery juicing, and the ramifications of undiagnosed Epstein-Barr virus are pretty significant, and they show up in ways that people tend to think this is normal to just age and have these issues show up, like brain fog and so forth. Can you speak more about the impact of Epstein-Barr virus?
So EBV is, I describe it to my patients as like that little stamp that gets left behind after you have mono. And I joke that as soon as I find someone that has a negative EBV test, I'm going to put them on the wall, kind of like, MVP, like most valuable employee or whatever, because I haven't yet. And oftentimes we'll test someone. I'll say, well, you have EBV. It's dormant, so that it could be a reactivated Epstein-Barr virus, or it can just be dormant, just hanging out in your system. And you might not even know it. You might not even remember having mono. It might have been just a really bad cold that your mom kept you home from school. Or, you're really sick in college and you skipped a couple of days of class and you didn't even know you had mono, but it leaves behind that mark. So very similar to chickenpox, can reactivate later in life to become shingles. And we know what reactivates it. Well, a heavy viral load, like if you get really, really sick, that can reactivate shingles. A lot of stress can reactivate shingles. So same thing with EBV. Stress, heavy viral loads can reactivate it. And then it goes into that active state to where you feel just exhausted and drained. It feels like you have mono. Now, the other tie-in with EBV is that we're seeing it very closely connected with Hashimoto's, which is the autoimmune form of hypothyroidism. And it's where your body attacks your thyroid gland because it thinks it's a bad guy. So we'll also see that correlation between EBV and Hashimoto's occur, as well as, and I haven't gone deep down the EBV rabbit hole. I mean, there are like EBV specialists that can go even deeper, but there are some correlations with increased risk of cancer. There's correlations with an increased risk of other autoimmune conditions. So it's something to know. Do you have EBV? Should you be supporting your immune system a little bit more? Should you be looking at the stress that you're under? Should you look to see, do you have Hashimoto's or other autoimmune conditions? And then it just might be knowledge at that point where you go, okay, it's there. Now I know, and moving on.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's say somebody does their lab test. It's a guy and he has low testosterone levels. What would you recommend as the kind of the next step in a process of figuring this out and getting to the root cause, getting some sort of supplementation or protocol in place to turn things around for this guy?
Yes. Okay. I love testosterone. It's like my second love next to the thyroid. And I love talking about it for men and women. So we'll start with guys. First of all, we have to start with the lab test. When you men go get your total testosterone checked, you kind of get the shaft when it comes to the standard lab value range. So just like I mentioned earlier, there's optimal and then there's normal standard lab value range. The standard lab value range for testosterone for a male usually starts on most labs at around a 225 or a 250, and it will go all the way up to If you're lucky, it'll actually go to 1,200, but most of the time it's down to like 1,000. And you will get flagged as low only if you are below that 225, 250 mark. If you're above that 225, 250 mark, you're getting told that you're normal. Everything is fine. So really that's where guys get kind of the shaft when it comes to testosterone, because they could be feeling low, having symptoms of low, actually be low according to functional medicine, but they're not told that they're low. They're blown off. They're discarded by conventional medicine and, okay, move along. You're totally fine. Nothing to see here. Meanwhile, the poor man is sitting there going, I have no libido. I have no motivation. I'm gaining man boobs. I'm gaining all kinds of weight in my midsection. I'm miserable. I'm depressed. I'm anxious. Like, I don't know what's going on with me at all. I don't feel like myself. I've lost muscle. I've lost strength. But conventional medicine doesn't care because you're within normal limits. So when we see that number, first of all, optimal, by the way, guys, is 800 or above. But I don't even want my 76-year-old father to be under an 800 for his testosterone level, because we know testosterone is cardiovascular protective. It protects your immune system. It protects you. It basically shores up your body to protect you against autoimmune conditions. So that's why women get more Hashimoto's than men, because you guys have more testosterone in general. Maybe it's not optimal testosterone, but you have more than we do. So testosterone has a host of benefits, including breast cancer protection for women, obviously muscle protection. So it's going to protect you against sarcopenia. We know that we lose muscle as we age, and that's a detriment when it comes to bones breaking and then ultimately mortality. So we want that testosterone level optimal. And to do that, yes, we're going to look at your lifestyle factors. Are you sleeping? Are you lifting heavy? Are you doing the things to support your lifestyle? And then we might move into supplementation. Are you taking zinc? Are you taking mag? Like, there's certain supplements and over-the-counter supplements like testosterone or beta-ectosterone that will naturally support a man's testosterone level. So, if you're coming in at like 500 to 600, we could really change up your lifestyle and do some supplementation. And that will most likely push you over and get you into that optimal range. But then sometimes we just have to use bioidentical testosterone replacement therapy. And that's where we are replacing that testosterone that is no longer being properly made. And we're bringing you into that optimal range. I'll use my husband as an example. He's 57 now. So we started him on testosterone about 2 years ago. He was tested and his test levels were like around 342, 360, something like that. And at his age, and he was very healthy. He lifts heavy. He has great muscular structure. He wasn't really experiencing a whole lot of symptoms, maybe just a couple, but we caught it early. We tested early. Technically, with his number, he should have been experiencing more symptoms. So I think just his lifestyle and how he takes care of himself helps. But we ended up using TRT because at that age, lifestyle, which he already had that box checked, and even supplementation isn't going to bring him up to above an 800. So there we just had to use testosterone replacement. When we're talking about ladies, I'll be brief here, but ladies, we get the shaft too. So our standard lab value range starts at maybe a 2. And you actually, this is for total testosterone, by the way. It gets cut off at a 48. You're not even in the optimal range until you're flagged high. So ladies, your optimal total testosterone is 50 or above. I have women that feel their best at 100. I have women that feel their best at 200. That becomes very personalized as to where you're going to land and what your optimal is. But we know if your total test is less than 50, you're going to have symptoms of decreased strength, decreased muscle tone, inability to build muscle, inability to burn fat gain, brain fog, low libido, low motivation. So we're going to see all of those symptoms as well with women, like we do with men. And sarcopenia. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we need that testosterone. And again, testosterone protects against breast cancer. It is very, very protective, and it's not something that's talked about enough. And then, of course, testosterone also keeps you off the Band-Aid medications, the antidepressants, the sleeping pills, the statins, the high blood pressure. It's cardiovascular protective. So why don't we see the ranges change in conventional medicine on those standard lab value ranges? Honestly, my theory, and not to go down a rabbit hole here, but my theory is because testosterone is so protective, it's going to keep you off the big pharma meds. It's actually going to keep you healthy. It's going to keep your body composition at a really nice, provided you do your part, you're not eating at McDonald's all day and sleeping 5 hours, but you're doing your part. You're going to get benefit. You're going to get the bang for your buck for putting in the effort, but it's also going to keep you off of all those big pharma meds.
Yep.
So testosterone, I love it. I love it. Basically, in a nutshell, sometimes we can do lifestyle and supplemental changes, and sometimes we have to go all the way to testosterone replacement.
Okay. Let's talk about some of those supplements. So not just for boosting testosterone levels, but for improving your thyroid function and overall health. So I know, for example, in your conversation with my wife, Orion, you were a proponent of taking berberine as a supplement for managing your blood sugar levels. What are some of the, well, first of all, why berberine? And where did that come about for you to incorporate that as part of your set of recommendations? And then what other additional supplements?
So berberine, let's start there. We know that a lot of biohackers are using metformin, which is a type 2 diabetic drug, as kind of an anti-aging protocol. We know that when insulin levels are high, it increases our risk of Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer, and obviously it puts on weight because insulin is a fat storage hormone. So ultimately, we want to keep insulin levels low. I heard another practitioner say, if you want to age quickly, keep your insulin up. You want wrinkles, you want degeneration, brain degeneration, neurological conditions, go ahead and just keep your insulin up. So we want to keep insulin levels low. Metformin is a prescription drug. And with metformin, there's about 30% of the population that take it experience really severe GI effects from it. Nausea, loose stools, to where they really just can't tolerate it. They're like, this isn't a good way to live. So enter in berberine. When you look at the studies of berberine, and it's just amazing. I have so many of them saved because it's berberine and whatever, Alzheimer's, type 2 diabetes, weight loss, fat loss, just on and on and on, the different conditions, because berberine is actually good for the gut too. So it repopulates your microflora. It helps kill off viruses and bacteria and parasites in the gut as well. It was used back in Chinese medicine as an antibiotic. So it has all of these beneficial properties to it. And when you look up the studies, it works very much like metformin, but really with 5 to 10% GI response in the population. So you're much lesser chance using berberine than you do metformin at getting those uncomfortable GI effects. And there's so many other benefits with it as well. They're even showing, berberine and cancer or prevention of cancer, because again, keeping that insulin low. So it's going to help with weight loss, and it's going to have a host of benefits for your entire body in terms of anti-aging, and it's supplemental. So you can get it over the counter. You don't have to go beg your doctor for a prescription and then worry about any of the prescriptive side effects. When I first released my supplement line, berberine was one of the first, because I knew that was of vital importance. And I often see insulin resistance, which is like pre-diabetes, right? We have type 2 diabetes here. What comes before type 2 diabetes? Insulin resistance, where your cells are resistant to insulin signaling. I see so much of that, especially in my hypothyroid population, that I knew that this was needed. So berberine, 100%. Kind of moving on from there, I think Orion and I talked about 3,5-diotyl-L-thyrionine, which is T2. That is one of the thyroid hormones. And again, it's available. T2 is the only thyroid hormone available in supplemental form, whereas T4 and T3 are prescriptions. Now, the benefits of T2 increases your basal metabolic rate, increases ATP production to help with your mitochondrial function. It stimulates brown adipose tissue, which is the protective fat. That's why we jump in cold plunges, to stimulate brown adipose tissue. So sometimes we don't want to jump in a cold plunge. So we can take T2 to stimulate that BAT, also improving our insulin sensitivity as well and our lipid panel. So T2 has a host of beneficial effects on the body. But what I see in my population of patients is weight gain and the inability to lose weight, and they can't do anything about it no matter how hard they try. So T2 is going to increase the basal metabolic rate, so the amount of fat that you burn at rest, essentially. So that was the other supplement that I came out with in the initial launch of the Fixer supplement line. It was Blood Sugar Fixer, Thyroid Fixer, and then Hormone Fixer. Hormone Fixer addressed the low testosterone in women. So again, going back to that standard lab value range, whenever I saw a woman with low T, we would use Hormone Fixer. It was a blend, or it is a blend of Tribulus and Tonkat Ali and a little bit of boron, saw palmetto, all to help support testosterone production in a woman naturally. So that would boost her up. And then I did bring in a men's line as well to help support with testosterone. That's the beta ectosterone, turkesterone, Fedosia agrestis. That helps support testosterone levels in men. So really, yeah, I would say if I had to, in order of importance, if you want to add something in for biohacking, it would be berberine and T2. And then you can get really granular with what's going on with you and what else do you need.
Yep. Yeah. Now, some of these supplements that I'll mention a couple of them that come to mind that I take on a daily basis. There's Bioptimizer's Magnesium Breakthrough, and there's Brain Octane from Bulletproof, which is C8 MCT oil. Both magnesium and the MCT oil will cause loose stools, and that's not fun, but it's like, what do you do about that?
That's not. Right. Right. I mean, it's kind of that balancing act, right? Because yeah, we all need mag. All of us are low in mag, and there's so many different magnesiums. So it's important to get a variety, and I'll just take one. I always, joke with people that they're like, I take mag citrate. I'm like, great, that'll have you poop, and that's it. So variety of mag.
Yeah, by the way, the Bioptimizer's Magnesium Breakthrough has 7 types of magnesium. So that's why I like that one.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I'm with you there. And then I would say MCT is great for brain function and even for fat burning, pushing someone into ketosis. Iodine doesn't get enough love, and iodine is needed by every cell in the body, helps with thyroid function, T4 to T3 conversion, hair growth, fibrocystic breasts, immune system support. So that would be another one. And then vitamin D. I call those my no duh supplements. Like, duh, of course you take them. You take your mag, you take your D, you take your iodine. That should be every day. We could throw in some B vitamins. We could throw in essential fatty acids or MCT oil into that. And then from there, yeah, you can get really granular with what you need.
Yep. And speaking of essential fatty acids, there's a relatively newly discovered essential fatty acid, the C15. And fatty15.com is where you would go to order this supplement. And I've been taking it. I found out about it from the most recent Biohacking conference, Dave Asprey's event that took place last year. And yeah, I heard the founder or co-founder speak about this essential fatty acid and ended up buying it. And I've been taking it for, 3-4 months now. It's good. It's really good.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's something to look into. And then
well, that's what we do. We experiment on ourselves.
That's right.
And then we relay the information to all y'all.
Well, there's something that doesn't cost any money, and it's such an essential supplement in my view. And I know you're into it, and it's like hugging trees and being connected with nature.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So what sort of kind of mystical or awesome experience do you want to share about feeling that sense of connection and oneness and with nature and with all that is?
So it's amazing that you asked that, because we just moved to this 20-acre piece of property with a ton of trees, and the people before us did this beautiful landscaping. So every day I walk my dog, and I've been able to, ever since being here, really tune into gratitude. You hear so much about it, like have gratitude every day and start each day with a grateful heart. But there's something that when you actually connect in nature that you can, and this might sound woo, but you can feel your heart connection more. You can feel what you're feeling. You can feel what you're thinking, good or bad, actually. So sometimes there'll be times where I'll stop myself and I'll think about what I'm thinking. And even during, a meditative walk, and it allows you to step back and say, our thoughts really do run our life. I've been bringing this more into even patient treatments, because I've been telling people, if you believe that you won't get better and you'll never lose the weight and you'll never feel good, then you probably won't, because your mind will drive your progress. And again, we can say that with health, We can say that with wealth. We can say that with business, relationships. If you think that my marriage is never going to work, it's never going to work, he's such an ass, it's not going to work. So being kind of tying your question together, being in nature and being able to really, for the first time in my life, really get it, like make that nature, heart, mind connection has allowed me to better treat my patients, because it's making me think about my thoughts and what results in my life, and then their thoughts and what's coming out of those thoughts and how is it affecting their health and their progress.
Yeah. And it helps with your own fulfillment too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I know we're out of time. So where do we send our listener to learn more from you, to buy your supplements, to maybe perhaps get coaching from you? Where do they go?
Absolutely. So if you're interested in working with us, with myself and my team, you can go to dramihornaman.com and click on book a call. You can book a free application call. We'll go over your health and what you're dealing with, and then fit you into a protocol that's going to work for you. If you're interested in any of the supplements that we talked about today, you can go to betterlifedoctor.com. And you can look for the blood sugar fixer, the thyroid fixer, hormone fixer, any of the other ones that we have on there that might fit your health needs. And of course, the Thyroid Fixer podcast is a great place to dive into all the things that I talk about, doing more deep dives into what we talked about today: thyroid, hormones, insulin, food, exercise, biohacking, all the things.
Yeah, all the things. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amie. Thank you, listener. Make it a great rest of your week and reveal some light in the world. We'll catch you on the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.